There are fighters in the UFC that are hyped up for mediocrity or just straight up taking losses. And I'm talking about praising guys for just being tough and losing, or, praising a guy for having a really stinky win, but just counting it as a good win because he's got a bunch of those stinky wins. I think you guys know what I'm getting at there. But listen, man, I just can't stand hyping guys up that have mediocre performances in the UFC. And I think there are a couple of fighters that I wanted to talk about today that kind of are a little bit overrated for the mediocre careers that they've had. The first guy that I'm going to discuss is someone that is getting a ton of hype going into his next fight. I'm sorry, but Paulo Costa fans treat this guy like he is an unbelievable megalodon in the middleweight division. I mean, I can't believe I just said that, but Jesus Christ, can you not overrate this guy to oblivion anymore, please? I mean, they'll talk about the fact that Costa's grappling is slept on. Oh, Costa's, that grappling's real gnarly. Look at how he was able to reverse positions when he was fighting Luke Rockhold, the OG 39-year-old old head. Luke Rockhold's one of those fucking old heads that, rocks a fucking sideways cap to try to fit in with the young guys. I know that he tries to act young, but he's 39. And here's the thing, guys. I'm telling you now, Paulo Costa reversing positions, you can talk about, oh, look, Luke Rockhold used to be a G back in the day when it came to his top game and all that. The fact that he's even giving Luke Rockhold the ability to get into a good position to begin with, to even get reversed when we're in the second, the third round, is pathetic. The fact that Paulo Costa is bringing Luke Rockhold to the third round is the kind of mediocrity that his fans and the people that are picking him leading into his next fight aren't really understanding. He shouldn't be going there in the first place. He should have knocked him out in the first. He should have subbed him. He should have bullied him into a submission like we saw Bobby Green do to a washed-up Tony Ferguson. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. This is a guy in Paulo Costa that's being picked to beat a young, hungry animal in Khamzat Chimaev that's never even touched gold, that wants nothing more than to win a championship. And you guys are acting like Paulo Costa's still at his peak, and that peak Paulo Costa, the guy that fought Yoel Romero, is going to be coming back, and he's going to be the guy showing up to fight Khamzat. I don't see it. If Bobby Green, who is he's not a journeyman because he actually wins a bunch of his fights, but my point is, if an old man Bobby Green can bully a washed-up Tony Ferguson into a submission, I would think that maybe a young, strong and healthy Paulo Costa is going to be at least able to finish an old man Luke Rockhold. That's all I'm saying. Mediocrity. And we're going to talk about that Marvin Vettori fight. Some guy told me today, and he said, listen, I think he showed Case some pretty good cardio in that Vettori fight. People talk about his cardio. I understand. Yeah, he looked all right. His cardio looked all right. I mean, don't get me wrong. He had a 20-pound weight advantage. He wasn't cutting any weight, so he wasn't draining himself, which would have usually led to a worse gas tank. And that's the usual thing that we see with Paulo Costa. But the fact that he's even losing to Marvin Vettori, that's what you guys aren't understanding. This dude is losing to Vettori on the feet. He's losing a fight to one of the most mediocre men to ever grace the octagon. And once again, you're praising this dude for his cardio. You're praising him for being strung along by Marvin Vettori. I can't wait for Khamzat Chimaev to absolutely decimate Paulo Costa, because I think that this guy is one of the most overrated fighters today. All right? I think he's one of the most overrated fighters today. I know that the odds are in favor of Khamzat Chimaev. I went on record saying that Paulo Costa is the favorite, but actually there was a glitch on the UFC website. Khamzat is the favorite. I don't know if he's enough of a favorite. I feel like I'm feeling like minus 600 for Khamzat Chimaev. I can't wait for him to absolutely annihilate this guy that is praised for his mediocrity. Again, where are the wins? Where are the impressive wins? You're beating Luke Rockhold, taking him to a decision. That's not impressive. That's mediocrity to a T. You're losing to Marvin Mediocre Vettori. That's even worse than mediocrity. He was the easiest fight of Adesanya's entire title reign. Adesanya is a guy that got shat on for being one of the most, uninspiring, stinky performers in his title fights against mediocre competition. And Paulo Costa was the guy that got absolutely dusted. Not Vettori, not Jared Cannonier. It was Paulo Costa. I'm tired of you guys hyping this guy up so much. On to the next one. Josh Emmett, the only man to continue to lose and still be painted out as a really solid win. Oh, that's a boogeyman, Josh Emmett. That's boogeyman. I saw Full Violence the other week post that Ilia Topuria, beat Josh Emmett and how impressive it was. Remember, never forget. This is what Full Violence was saying. Never forget. 50-42. Just let that sink in. Like, listen, man. I understand that that's an impressive scorecard, which he didn't deserve. It was not 50-42 by any means. Josh Emmett was actually in there at certain moments. But my point is, people act like beating Josh Emmett is some kind of example that you are ready for Volk or that you're ready to fight in a title fight. And I just think that couldn't be further from the truth. We kind of learned this with Yair Rodriguez. You know what I mean? Yair butchered this man and rolled him into a fucking joint and smoked him in two rounds. That's all it took. And I just can't stand how people talk about this guy like he's the, 145-pound Yoel Romero. You know what I mean? Like, Yoel Romero isn't getting dusted up and finished in 2 rounds by anybody. Yoel Romero is not getting 50-42'd by anybody. And I understand that not all you guys give this guy a lot of credit. It's just that, even talking about someone's win over him being that great, unless you butcher him, again, unless you completely run through him and finish him, I just feel like you're not doing your job. Now, at least Ilia Topuria was able to 50-44 him. I'll say 50-44. I don't think it was a 50-42. I think that was a bad scorecard. At least Ilia was able to do that. But again, it's like, Josh Emmett's not that boogeyman. He isn't. Who the hell has he dropped? Like, when's the last time he's dropped or hurt anyone? I don't even remember. I think it may have been, maybe Dan Ige? I think he maybe dropped Dan Ige for a second, but it's like, all right, man, that's it. I just don't think that Josh Emmett is that guy. And I'm absolutely tired of hearing people talk about this guy like he's the featherweight Yoel Romero. He's not. He's not the featherweight Yoel Romero. But he still gets talked about as some kind of boogeyman. No matter how many losses he has, Josh Emmett could lose his next fight to Brian Ortega. He could lose another fight to Bryce Mitchell. He could lose another fight to Diego Lopez. He could get finished in all 3, and somehow they're going to put this man against Paddy Pimblett, and they're going to be saying Josh Emmett's going to kill Paddy Pimblett. Like, I'm sorry, but it's done. Josh Emmett, I never want to hear about this guy again as being some kind of serious, monstrous threat to anyone ranked. Like, I understand if you're putting a prelim guy, if you're putting, a guy that just got out of the Dana White Contender Series against Josh Emmett, they're going to get smoked. They're going to get smoked. But at a certain point in 2023, we can't just look at a guy with a big hefty overhand and say to ourselves that, yeah, this guy's a next level boogeyman. Like, he's not. He's just got a big overhand, and that's about it. The fact that he even made it to the top 5 or around the top 5 is just a testament to how genius the UFC is. They know what they're doing. They know they're going to trick fans when you guys see a guy with a big overhand. They know that you guys are going to say, oh, he's a boogeyman, and that's why we need Josh Emmett fighting in an interim title fight, because it's the big swing in Josh Emmett versus Yair Rodriguez. And of course, I wasn't surprised that Yair went in there and absolutely smoked him, absolutely butchered him. So shout out to Josh Emmett, by the way. Yeah. I mean, goodness gracious, people were basically comparing this guy to Volk and saying he's just another version of Volk. Fuck that. He ain't another version of Volk. On to the next one. Israel Adesanya. Again, like, let me just fucking get back to this shit. People are using his performance against Ilia Topuria's performance against Josh Emmett to, again, like, talk about how he's going to go out there and beat Volk. You can't finish Josh Emmett. I'm sorry. I am not picking you to beat Volk. Enough. Stop the bullshit, please, all right? If you can't get this guy out of here, you don't have a fucking chance in hell, all right? No, Ilya's got a chance. He's got a puncher's chance for sure. He's got good boxing. He's the shorter, stubbier guy that will be able to match up with Volk when it comes to the stature. But I'm just fucking tired of people looking at that 50-42 and, taking that all the way to the bank. Tired of it. On the net. Okay. All right. You see who's on the screen. It's Izzy. It's Adesanya himself. All right. And I had a debate with some of you guys. I do online debates. I do MMA debates where I have my subscribers come on and they debate me on things. And I constantly just hear people praise Izzy too much for his mediocre title run. Now, hear me out. The fact that you have to come up with an excuse for damn near half of his performances shows that Izzy is hyped up for being mediocre. And hear me out. Like, getting outstruck by Jan Blachowicz, Adesanya fans, the first thing they're going to say is, he's giving up 20 pounds of weight. He was giving up 20 pounds. Listen, he was getting outstruck Do you hear these words? He was getting outstruck, buddy. He was getting his kicks checked. All right, he was getting out jabbed. He was swinging and missing and hitting air all night against Jan Blachowicz. All right, he got fucking shut down against Sean Strickland. Completely shut down against one of the plainest fucking striking styles that ever existed in the UFC. Your high-level last airbender, Israel Adesanya. All right. Again, how often are we going to have to hear these, phrases like Izzy wasn't motivated, he didn't have a vendetta? Like, okay, bro, Izzy's not always going to have a vendetta. He should be able to school Marvin Vettori. He should be able to school Jared Cannonier. The fact that he can't, and you guys are going to make excuses for it and say that's just a one-off. Like, I've seen too many performances from Izzy where it's so stinky and it puts me to sleep. Again, I literally fell asleep in the 4th round of Marvin Vettori and Adesanya. I literally fell asleep in the 4th round of Adesanya and Jared Cannonier. And at a certain point, you guys need to stop putting this man on a pedestal for mediocrity, because half of his title reign has been mediocre. The Yoel Romero fight was a mediocre performance. The Whitaker fight was a mediocre performance. The Jared Cannonier fight, the Marvin Vettori fight. How many mediocre showings are we going to have to see before Izzy fans admit that he's not a top 3 striker? This is what it's all about. It's just about ranking him as... I don't understand what it is. They can talk about Izzy as being a good champion. They can say he's a good striker. They'll accept all these things, but they just can't. They can't come to terms. Adesanya fans just can't seem to come to terms with rating Izzy outside of your top 5 on the best strikers in the UFC. They can't. I don't know what it is. There's some kind of glitch in the system. If you possibly write it down on their list, they're going to go crazy. Like, I don't understand why. But they cannot deal with the fact that Izzy isn't even one of the top 5 strikers in the sport. He may not even be top 10. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. He may not even be top 10, guys. And that shouldn't be disrespectful at this point. Like, we are living in a world where this guy literally got fucking dominated by Sean Strickland. We're living in a world where the Yoel Romero fight, the Cannonier fight, and the Vettori fight all put us to sleep, and that's half of his title fights. We're living in a world where a lot of people thought that he didn't beat Robert Whitaker. You know what I mean? And of course, we're living in that same world where he got beat by Poatan and he got beat by Jan Blachowicz. And I've just seen too many L's and too many mediocre performances for me to even consider this guy as being a top 5. I understand that Adesanya is a great striker, but you can't be going and having those kinds of fights against Marvin Vettori. You just can't. You can't. And be touted as the best striker in the game. I'm sorry, man. Volkanovski's never having a close fight like that with a guy on the level of mediocre Marvin. You know what I mean? Like, who's another really good striker? You think Wonderboy is making it that close with a mediocre fighter like Marvin Vettori? Wonderboy is 50-45ing Jeff Neal. 50-45ing Jeff Neal, and the rounds aren't that boring. Like, he's outclassing him. He's shutting him down. Look at what Wonderboy did to Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal, that's a stand-up battle on the feet. Jorge's a guy that's got really good striking. None of us are going to consider... Okay, none of us are even going to think about Marvin Vettori as being even close to the level of Jorge Masvidal. And Wonderboy made this guy look like a damn fool. Actually made him look like a fool. That's what I'm talking about as a top 5 striker. I'm talking about a Yair that's making someone like Volkanovski and Max Holloway shoot takedowns because they don't want to stand with him because it's getting too hectic on the feet. And we're not even talking about heavyweight where this guy's swinging around bombs, nukes. But we're talking about just speed. We're talking about just like a different level of agility on the feet in Yair Rodriguez. But we're talking about Izzy. Come on, man. I've seen people shut this guy down methodically. You know what I mean? And I've seen him stink it up too many times. So that's all I'm saying. I feel like people rate him a little bit too highly for, the somewhat mediocre title run that I've seen. Now, a lot of wins are up there. He's great. But he ain't as good as some of you guys think. On to the next one, Colby Chaos Covington himself, one of the fighters that, in my opinion, is praised way too much for mediocrity. And I'm talking about a complete lack of excellent wins. All right, listen. Colby Covington, a lot of people talk about how, the biggest thing he's ever done is lose to Kamaru Usman. And I think that there's some merit to that, but I will at least give him credit and say that there is something telling about having a close fight with Usman. It means that you're close to him. It means that maybe you're not necessarily better than him, but you're damn near close. That being said, I still haven't seen Colby do anything worth the amount of hype that he gets. Like, he 48-47'd RDA. I'm pretty sure Kamaru Usman 50-45'd him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure Leon Edwards 49-46'd him. I've seen Habib 30-27 him, clean sweep him. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen people beat RDA. And Colby Covington hasn't done it better than any of those guys. In fact, he's done it worse. And again, don't get me wrong. Beating RDA back then is a good win, but that's it. That's all I'm saying, man. That's it. His resume is really, really, really shitty. And people talk about Khamzat all the time. Who the hell is Khamzat beat? You know what? I'm ranking that win over Li Jingliang. Choking Li Jingliang out, a young, ranked fighter at the time. We're not talking about like a rookie, but a young guy that's ranked at number 11 on earth, that's got some of the most KOs in the welterweight division's history. I think Khamzat Chimaev choking him out in the first round is more impressive than Colby Covington 50-45ing or 50-44ing Robbie Lawler or TKOing Woodley in the fourth via rib injury. It wasn't even like a cool TKO. It's just like, Woodley busted a rib on the ground. And, it was one of those stinky kind of TKOs. Like, don't get me wrong. Colby Covington has had really dominant performances, but people act like, Khamzat's not done anything. Really? Because I swear to God, some of you guys would tell me that Colby Covington going out there and beating Jorge Masvidal and taking him the distance is better than, Khamzat running through Kevin Holland in one. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. I honestly think that beating Kevin Holland in one round is pretty damn similar for Colby Covington, a 50-45, an older man Masvidal who was, 37 at the time? And don't get me wrong, Jorge Masvidal was a lot more highly ranked. Like, he was up there in the rankings. But listen, like, if Colby was running through these guys in one round or two rounds, and I know that's not his style. I know he's got, like, the pillow hands, and he doesn't really have the ability to finish people like that. And I know just him washing people out and just completely demolishing them with the cardio and the wrestling, the chain wrestling is impressive. I'm impressed by his performances, but I just don't think he has any win that makes me believe that this guy is going to go out there and beat Leon Edwards, who is, once again, probably one of the biggest welterweights on the roster, that is extremely well-rounded. Again, we're no longer in the days of, one-dimensional guys necessarily being champions in every division. I know we have a Sean O'Malley here or there, but my point is, for the most part, the champions of the guys in the top five are extremely well-rounded. I think that Colby Covington has beat a bunch of guys dominantly that weren't well-rounded. Jorge Masvidal, say what you want about his submission defense, he's not well-rounded. You know what I mean? Woodley, yeah, well-rounded, but he's not even close to in his prime by the time that Colby fights him. And that Woodley was the frozen one to a T. You know what I mean? And then we're going to go to Robbie Lawler, and it's like, all right, what are we going to talk about? Robbie Lawler's wrestling being that great? Like, it's not that great. And Robbie Lawler was taking that fight on short notice, bouncing off of two losses. Again, 38 years old. All of these guys were bouncing off of two losses, 37-38. But anyway, guys, those are the four, guys in question that I wanted to talk about. Josh Emmett, Adesanya, Colby Covington. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.